It was a dream come true, an innovative idea never before attempted by the building industry in Connecticut. Build a condominium, not in the traditional location of city or suburbia, but in a rustic setting in a rural area. That the project would fail was the consensus of many builders and bankers, but the dream persisted, and the search began for just the right site. It led developers to the small town of Southbury.
Southbury, Connecticut, 1965. The small village, with a population of about 4,000, lies halfway between Danbury and Waterbury in southwestern Connecticut. It's primarily a farm community, and many farmers are still working the land. Virgin forests cover much of the land, for population growth here has been peacefully slow. The heavily wooded forests are as untouched today as they were when the Pomperaug Indians roamed the countryside. The Pomperaug River flows through the area. Progress is beginning to show its mark, however. Interstate 84 is slowly making its way through the town as it makes its way east towards Hartford. Southbury is in for a major change.
When Victor Borga bought the property from the Ballantyne estate in 1952, the real estate records show that he bought it under the name of Pheasants Incorporated. So it was realized from the early days that he intended to become a gentleman farmer. He began raising rock Cornish hens on his property soon after moving to Southbury, and it was operated under the name Vibo Farms. So it is this present activities building which was the processing plant where the hens were packaged and marketed to customers throughout the East and elsewhere, many upscale customers primarily in the New York area. The question arises, how did he do as a gentleman farmer? And to quote Henry Paparazzo in a 1990 talk to the Men's Club, quote, "He was a better musician than a businessman. He processed 2,800 hens a day and lost 5 cents on each bird."
The origin and development of this award to three factors: circumstances, timing, and people. First, circumstances. Passage of the Unit Ownership Act in 1963 that made possible, for the first time in Connecticut, the building of homes based on the condominium principle. Second, timing. Construction of I-84 that gave Southbury easy access to all of New England and the New York area. And third, people. The Paparazzo brothers, who decided to risk building an adult condominium on rolling wooded land in a rural area. This was contrary to the assumption by builders, bankers, and realtors that a successful home development must be located on fairly level land near a city or urban center. The Paparazzos were exploring new architectural patterns, cluster grouping, better use of available land, and the social and cultural needs of a community. About that time, a San Francisco architect, Charles Warren Callister, was winning substantial recognition for a 10,000-unit retirement home colony, Leisure World, at Walnut Creek, California. Investigating the possibilities of large-scale home development in rural areas, Henry and Otto Paparazzo visited scores of adult communities from coast to coast and discussed designs with many architects. They liked what they saw at Walnut Creek. Around a golf course laid out in a valley, Callister had designed residential units rising on a series of terraces up the surrounding hillsides. Although not cluster grouped, the patterns were varied, and Callister had preserved natural contours in the layout of interior roads and home sites.
The Paparazzos have come up with an idea that will change the face of the community forever. A retirement community they will call Heritage Village.
Well, actually, we had purchased this land. We were going into negotiations, trying to purchase this land in the early 60s. And at the time, we were involved in a little bit of development in the Woodbury area and some other areas. And this was just a great piece of land, which we all fallen in love with the land and thought, boy, this would be a great piece of real estate to develop and so forth. So we managed to work a deal out to purchase the land, but the idea of making it into a heritage village was probably a result of, at the time we bought it, it didn't seem appropriate for us to try to do it as a single-family lot development kind of project, because there wasn't that much of a market at the time. So we were looking for a broader reception area for it, that we could reach out and get people for more distance to bring them into. And the idea of adult communities, it was being done some in a few other parts of the country, and we thought about that maybe doing an active adult kind of a community, that it would work here, and that would draw people from a larger radius.
To get more acreage to put into the package because we felt we needed more. We bought the Winship Farm, and I forget how many acres that was. It was a couple hundred acres, I think. And we had the Victor Borgen property, which I think was around 250. And then what was the other?
I think Borgen was a little over 300.
300 acres.
At the time.
And then the Kruger Estate, that was like, I think, 150. We amassed, in total, we amassed 1,200 acres. And that's what became the nucleus of the village. We chose Warren Callister as the main architect because we tried a couple of local architects, and they just didn't have a feel for what we were talking about. Warren Callister was at that time doing a great job in a place called Walnut Creek in California. So I went out to California, my brother Louis and I went out to California.
The cluster principle, rather than the gridiron plan typical of so many developments, made Otto's innovative and creative sense of siting possible.
To fully appreciate the concept of cluster development, especially as implemented in Southbury by the Paparazzo brothers, you have to view retirement communities elsewhere.
Bill Walker worked closely with the Paparazzos and the architect from the very beginning of the construction of Heritage Village. He explains his role.
And was a wonderful association. I think it was probably one of the highlights of my professional career to work with Henry and Otto and with Warren Callister on this particular project. One of the nice things about the area to start with was we had lots of magnificent trees, and the topography itself lent itself to all sorts of different types of structures. Whenever you dig a foundation, you've got to cut some trees, so we decided rather than cut trees, we try and move trees. And the company bought a tree spade, which is a giant machine, basically a set of claws which dig into the ground, lift the tree up, and transport it to a new location. Altogether, we moved somewhere around 600 or 700 trees from various locations, not only in the village where we had to pour a foundation, but also from a lot of them came from what at that time was the Uniroyal plant over on the Uniroyal offices over on Route 188.
It was interesting. Another thing which we don't have today, unfortunately, is it's very difficult to build a place like this. I don't think you could do it again in this part of the country. There are so many requirements and so many operations and approvals that it virtually becomes impossible to do a project like this. At that time, we could really move along. You had to make decisions and do them quickly. Today, you can't do that. You get slowed down by the process. The process really prohibits something like this from happening in this part of the country. And so you guys, this is a dinosaur. You're not gonna see another one around these parts.
You guys kind of divided.
Well, I guess in order to take this now, I think we were pretty positive guys. We felt we could do things even though you weren't supposed to be able to do them. We were going to do them anyway. But we got a lot of help from a lot of good people. And I think probably the most rewarding thing is it certainly worked out as good or better than we expected. But what really makes the village great, I believe, it's not really the village without the people. It's the people that really make it a special place. And we were just very fortunate. I think if we could go around and select people, say, we want you to be part of this thing, because it's really the component that makes the whole thing work.
Yes. 1994, I think it was, Bill took me to California, and he introduced me to Warren Callister, the head architect. And I told him that it has taken me 25 years to meet him. I wanted to thank him. He said, "What for?" I said, "For providing me with such a beautiful place to work." And Henry, I'd like to thank you too, you and Otto both, for providing me with this beautiful place. My best memories are of Heritage Village.